What's up, Eric? Yeah, I wanted to speak to you about something. I've been thinking a lot these days, been on YouTube quite a lot, and I've been listening to some guy from America. He's a 30-year-old black American or African American who is a conservative in his viewpoints, Republican, believes that black people need to take responsibility of their actions and stop blaming the police, blaming the government for their plight. I'm not too sure whether he uses the word black to mean all black. I don't think he does, because obviously he's black and he doesn't think that way. But I've been sort of struggling with this conservative blacks, which some people would say they're just Uncle Toms. They're just the slave that was in their house, or the one that looks out for massa. That's the simple way of looking at it, but I think there's a little bit more to these guys. I think some of them are just genuine people, just trying to be themselves, and not just falling into the camp of being left because they're black. I think that's one of the dangers that we have as black people, is that we naturally, a lot of us, fall into the so-called towards the left in terms of our viewpoint when it comes to politics anyway. But in reality, a lot of black people is very conservative. Look at our African brothers who's come over here, and ones that live in Africa, they're very conservative in their viewpoints, a lot of things. We're very conservative as Caribbean people. We think very conservative in certain ways, but we don't vote. We don't tend to vote on that side a lot. Not all of us, I know there's a minority of us that vote conservative, and I think there's a growing minority. There's a minority that votes Republican, as far as I know, but that number is growing, as far as I've been told. According to I've been hearing on YouTube, certain people have been saying this in news reports and so forth. But I'm sort of kind of not struggling, but kind of trying to put myself in a position where I don't naturally just take on the viewpoint of one side, because obviously you've got the viewpoint of the right, and the right is that blacks, to them racism is not really in America. I think they believe it's there, but they don't believe it's systemic. They don't believe it's systemic even here in England, or some of the English supporters of the blacks. The English supporters from here that support that kind of conservative viewpoint don't believe systemic racism is here. And I'm talking to this guy online, I think it's more than one guy actually, and I'm trying to say systemic racism does exist in this country. And for me, like, to be honest, as an individual, I can't think of any way of proving that systemic racism exists in this country, but I can point my finger at least a few reports that covered certain areas, like criminal justice, like Lord Scarman report that came out is after Brixton riots. Then you had Macpherson report. Was that to do with Steve Lawrence, that black boy that got killed by the white racists? And they did a report. I may be getting it wrong, it may be someone else. We did a report on the police force and found that the police force were systemically or institutionally racist. And then there was like a report even done by Theresa May. I don't know whether she's done it herself. She was the Prime Minister of England, as we know, was the Prime Minister of England. And I think the report was ordered under her. I don't think she did it herself. I'm not 100% sure whether she did a report. I'm not 100% sure on that. But and then we had a report that report with what's her name, Theresa May, Prime Minister of England at the time. That covered every area of like health, national health, criminal justice, and all the other, the area, probably the prison service, everything to do with like that was covered, and it showed up there was a lot of disparities. Now, some people say, like the black conservatives, I mean, they think kind of common sense, where they say, well, a disparity doesn't always mean it's racism. And I could sort of, I can step back and say, okay, I can see that. because disparity, the reasoning for disparity doesn't always boil down to race. But I would disagree with the conservatives, but to say that even if it's not all racism, disparities, there's definitely racism there, because there's and that's just from me naturally thinking that. I'm leaning towards thinking that, because I got a belief, and it may be wrong, that sometimes even just being in the midst of a doctor or a nurse, or sometimes black people can be seen differently, can be treated differently. Now there is actually proof, and I think it's a report went out that sometimes when it comes to pain relief, I'm just not too sure if it's black men but black women, the doctors tend to, or in hospital tend to think that they need less pain relief. That is definitely something that an article, a report that I read, not some little backstreet report. This is a proper report. I think it's a government or NHS report. And those kind of beliefs goes right back to slavery, because the guy that in America that was one of the founding, he's like the father of gynecology. We all know, some of us know, that he experimented on black women, and that this is well documented. This is not some made up stuff, it's documented. And he experimented on them without anesthetic, cutting them open, all sorts of stuff. That's the most brutal thing that he did to them. And because he had this belief that black women could bear pain more, even though the woman's screaming her eyes out and got other women holding her down. But at the time there was a pain relief. The name of it's gone out of my head now. That would have been around about probably 1800s. There was a pain relief that people used to have, and the white women used to get it because he was a surgeon, and he helped white women, but he experimented on black women. So we see there that this myth about black people feeling less pain comes back way back from there. And in our British hospitals, there's been a report, and I can't put my finger in it, that I read it, that said that. So what I'm saying here is that, my trend of thought is that I've been talking to some guys online. I'm going to upload this, what I'm saying here, and I've been trying to convince them that institutional racism does exist here. And even if the disparities is not always down to race comes into it. So we know for a fact, Eric, you're a black man and I'm a black man. We know for a fact that if you was to just ask a few black guys of our generation, we in our 50s, they will tell you the amount of times police have stopped them, not in their car but on the streets. Some of them may have gone through life and not been stopped once. But what I'm trying to prove here to some of these people that I'm talking to online is that black people generally get stopped more. That's one thing, and that is definitely racism. Obviously, there's going to be times where it's not down to race, it's down to the fact that they feel that they have figures that in one area more street crimes have been committed, and that areas are not predominantly black, but got a high black percentage, and those crimes have been carried out by young black teens. So I can see, okay, I can understand why he would want to stop somebody, but what it is, the problem is not just that, they overdo it, and what they do, they actually cause problems. Because I've been told by one guy at work, had a policeman recently, and he's in his 30s, threw him down. Out of the blue, the guy didn't do anything. Tried to arrest him for some foolishness. So these things are still happening. We might not see it, because even I sometimes I think to myself, I haven't had a racist encounter, not an overt one, for a long time. For many years, I think the job that I'm doing, I think I got it easily. It wasn't no problem. A lot of black people, they excel in different jobs and whatever. Sometimes we don't see things that we shouldn't be looking and digging for things, but we can't always assume that because we're going through quite good that it's not happening. So we always have to keep our eyes open to reports and different things that have been done. Now, I'm telling you this, Eric, but this is for anyone else listening to this. There has been done experiments where experiments where what they've done is that they've posted application forms to different jobs in the city, and what they've done, they've posted, say like, for example, they've posted 200 200 applications where the name may be Smith, Jones, Williams, something like that, and then they've posted another 200 applications where the names are sounding foreign, like Mohammed, Babatunde, or anything that may sound like an African name or Asian type name. And what they discovered is that, I don't know how they worked this out, but they discovered that a lot of the names that didn't sound English, the managers didn't even open it. They threw it in a bin. They just threw it straight in the bin. So now, anybody listening to this, if that is not racism, what is it? Just tell me what it is. What would you call that? Is it because he doesn't like the name? It just sounds a bit too funny? Or is it because he knows the name is attached to someone that's not white? Is that the reason why he's throwing it in the bin? Ask yourself, honestly, what do you think of that? Why do you think he or she is throwing those things in the bin? So Eric, you know and I know racism exists. And even though we might not always feel it, I can tell you, Eric, right now that, and I've told you this before, and this is for anyone else listening to this, I have had overt racism happen to me. I know it's a long time ago, in the 1970s and 80s, maybe 70s and 80s. I'm not going to go into what happened to me. But the last time I've had an overt racist thing happen to me, believe it or not, was only months ago. I was driving and I accidentally sort of went over my lane, and a guy shouted out at me, "You black bastard. Why did you do whatever, you black bastard?" So that was straight over racist. I know people are going to just say, well, there's just a few racists out there. But racism, what is racism? And how does racism work? And how does racism actually impact on black people's lives? Sometimes racism is very subtle. It's just a slight bias. It's just the way someone can react to you, or somebody can follow you in a shop or something like that. That used to happen to a lot of people, and still does. They're following you in the shop while the white person's stealing all the goods. I remember seeing a white couple in a post office where we post letters. I'm saying this for the sake of those from America. I don't know whether, I think you've got the same system of post offices and so forth. I remember I was in the queue waiting to get served, and this couple, they were probably in their late 30s, white couple. The woman was in the queue, and the guy was just walking around the post office putting stuff in his bag, and no one bat an eyelid. No one even thought to check those people because they're too busy looking at other people. So I'm speaking this thing, I'm talking about this because I want people to realize that institutional racism does exist, because why would the reports say it does? Now, one guy replied back to me, Eric, and he said that those reports are done by Labour people, so the Labour were lefties, and lefties just at the moment, their narrative is that systematic racism is just everywhere. Systematic racism is just, and racism is just out there, and black and white people need to be guilty, and white people need to sort of look at themselves and all that. So that's what they write. The black right, that's what they believe is happening, and those whites who on the right, they believe that the left is just pushing a narrative of racism, and it's just like being oversensitive and racism is not even there. So that's where the two polarization is. The polarization of those on the left saying that racism is everywhere, and some blacks who's taken that on and say, yeah, racism is everywhere, even though some of them aren't even experience it themselves. So I can see the point of view where the right, those on the right say, some blacks are just falling in for this thing, think the whites is helping them, the white left, but it's not really helping them. The white left is just in America, is just on the agenda. If you want to call the Democrats left, I mean, that's, some people say they're not left. You know, I don't know much about American politics, but at the end of the day, it seems like a lot of these people trying to get votes. So, but the blacks think, oh, some of the whites are helping us now. They really finally understand. But there is more to it than that. There's much more to it than that. And that's what the right people on the right is saying. So I can actually get down with that, with what they're saying there. But what I don't get down with is that they believe that black people need to stop complaining about certain things and whatever. And I can sort of see that to a certain degree, because some people do complain and not do nothing. They're not getting up off their arse and do something. But this is where my big but is. You got these black on the right who just think that we could just end crime just like that in the black communities. The communities where there is, I'm talking about, not every black community's got crimes or a high level of crime, but we know those where the people, it's all to do with the economics of that community. That's one of the big things, because from what I know of American politics, from what I understand, is that the people's taxes, what they pay, that's what goes into the actual local facilities like schools, teachers and so forth. But these low income areas, they don't have good schools, obviously, because they're paying less tax, and they don't attract great teachers. Just like a bit like in Britain in a way, we got schools like that. And I want to ask my friend Eric here, and I want to ask my black conservative brothers here, I want to ask you, if you had a choice and you had a choice to send your child to a school, would you send, if you had a choice to send them to school in the ghetto, or so-called ghetto, or the projects, or in the rundown areas of Baltimore or somewhere like that? If you had that choice, but then you also had the choice that you had enough money, more than enough money, or somebody offered you scholarship, your son a scholarship or your daughter a scholarship to the top school in America, the school where the children get 100% on the top level grades. You had the choice, and then not only that, when those children leave that school, when they get to a certain age and they go to university, they get to the top university, because the school that they've gone to is recognised and the results is recognised, and they go to top university that they go to, the actual employers for America recognises them employees. You just have to mention, I've been to Harvard, and you're almost in the door already. Now, if you had the choice to send your child to the ghetto school, would you send them there? Is the answer yes or no? If it's no, why is it no? I'll tell you why it's no. Because you know for a fact your child in that school environment, their life chances are going to be so minimal. So minimal. The life chances is going to just go down to, if you want to measure it from 1 to 100, it's going to go down to 10. Their chances of excelling into a good university and then into a good job is going to be so much diminished if they're in a school where the teachers are not even being paid well. The teachers are not even, they're just there because they can get a position in those schools. And some of them are just there because they think they can help. They think they know the community, but they don't. Now, you had the choice to send your kids to that school. You would, no parent, most parents wouldn't want to send their children to a school that they know that their chances of succeeding in life is going to be less. So how do you expect young men and women growing up in these low income areas, how do you expect them to not end up in crime? Not all of them, But a percentage of them is going to find that road easy. When you know that your chances of getting a job that you really wanted, it's been diminished because your school was so bad that you wasn't even motivated. You wasn't even, that your teachers didn't even inspire you or give you a high expectation of yourself. And remember, you're still a young child when you first start off there. So obviously you're taking on what the adults are telling you. You're not going to have that motivation to say, oh no, okay, I'm going to not do what the teachers say to me. What happened to Malcolm X? He was in a school and he said to the teacher that he wanted to be a lawyer. What did the teacher say to him? Your kind of people can't be lawyers. You can be a lorry driver or something like that. I know that's a long time ago, but teachers still give low expectations to a lot of black children. Not only black children, white children too, but mainly disproportionately black children in them schools. And they end up with low self-esteem about themselves. They have no dreams, they have no hopes. And when you've got no dreams and no hopes, there's more chance that an older person comes along to you and says, you know something, can you take that bit of drugs over that road there, please, for me? I'll give you a quick $100. And you're thinking to yourself, $100? You're a youngster, $100. Some child would say, you know something, my uncle said, don't talk to strangers or whatever. They might have a family network that's going to help them just to sort of think differently. But then some people ain't got that network. Their uncle's already gone to prison. Their brother's already in prison. And this and that. What I'm trying to say is that when you're in that environment, your life chances are less. So you black conservatives, don't lecture me or anyone else about telling people to take responsibility. Yes, they have to take responsibility, but your chances of taking responsibility is minimized when you're in a situation where you feel like there's no way out. You're in the suburbs and your parents have got 2 cars, you're going to a good school, the crime in your area is very low and everybody's peaceful. Of course you're going to do better. Your whole mindset's going to be different, your psychology. You see your uncle's a lawyer, your brother's doing well, your sister is in the top university. Of course you're going to do well. And even in those situations, you've got young white kids doing bad stuff. But all that happens to them is it's slapped on their wrist and, they're just growing up. They're just growing up. They're just growing up. But the black kids, you do one little bit of drugs, but next thing you know, you're in prison. That's the disparities. And if you don't believe it, just research it. I'm not talking to you, Eric, because I know you know these things, but anyone else listening to this, if you don't believe it, research it. A black person doing a crime is more likely to get a harsher sentence, more likely to get a sentence if it's the same crime as a white person in America and in England. Not only that, a dark-skinned black woman will get a higher sentence than a light-skinned black woman. And I think it works the same for a black man and a light-skinned black man. But I haven't read that report. But the thing that I read was about women, a darker woman seen differently, because what these black conservatives don't understand, and I think Eric knows this, is that shadism is part of racism. And shadism happens within the black community, but shadism also happens between the white majority community, who sometimes favor a light-skinned person more because that person's like closer to being white. You know what I'm trying to say? And those things does really happen. There was a point when England football side was mainly mixed race boys. It seemed like there was like purpose, because all of them, when they took the picture, it just kind of blended in with the white guys. You know what I mean? So shadism does happen, and we got people here on YouTube telling me that racism don't exist, and these things do exist. I'm gonna leave it here at that. I'm gonna give more of this type of thing, but I'm gonna give more factual stuff, and hope you guys that listening to this will actually listen to what I'm saying, because just like I'm listening to what you're saying, you black conservatives, I'm actually listening to what you're saying. I'm trying to hear exactly what you're saying and not trying to block it. But I just disagree with some things, that's all.